fantastic interview with Steve and Casey from Flying Colors on the 9th of September 2012. Yes, it's a relatively new band, Flying Colors, but with very famous musicians. So who had the idea to form this band?
Bill Evans came to me about working with Neil Morse and Kerry Livgren and have a very prog-heavy, composition-heavy band with a singer that could appeal to people that didn't necessarily listen to that kind of stuff. And Kerry couldn't do it. He had a serious health problem. And I got together with Neil. We wrote for a day and a half, and it was really good. So we went ahead. He was working with Mike on a bunch of things. I was working with Dave on a bunch of things. And we started looking for a singer. And we got Casey from Mike's recommendation. However, he sounded fantastic, but he also was a writer. And Casey could tell you how it happened for him.
Yeah, I got a call from Bill, and I'd known Mike through my old band Indochine and my new band Alpha Rev. We were recording in New York, and Mike was recording there with Dream Theater, and so we kind of hung out there and started our relationship. And so Bill called me in, and Mike and Neil had worked together in the past. They're working with Transatlantic, and so Mike and Neil had been together. Steve and Neil had written, and obviously Steve and Dave had played together for many years as well. So there was, everybody had a relationship of somewhat with someone. So it was a new band, but the relationship formed, between us formed pretty quickly, I would say.
But you are the youngest guy, so is it something special to work with such legends of rock, or some kind of adoration, or some?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like
you can tell the truth. Come on.
Yeah. No, I feel it a huge privilege. People normally, don't get to work with guys that. You have your band, and so either someone in your band becomes great, or they don't. But it's very rare for someone like me to have an opportunity to get to work with, say someone like Steve. So I've learned more about guitar playing from Steve in 2 days of rehearsal than I had in 10 years. So,
and you had the possibility to write lyrics and put some music in it. So it was a teamwork, or were there some musicians who gave the direction?
Well, I had said to everybody, let's please not try to bring in songs, bring in ideas, so that we can, change them into, add to them as a band. And for the most part, that's what happened. But there's a few exceptions where the songs were relatively complete. And the idea is to get the identity of the band and everything. Everybody has done their own albums. Everybody knows what to do. Everybody knows how to write. Yeah. So we didn't need to prove that. What we needed to do was come up with something that none of us would write, and that none of us would have come up with by ourselves. And I think we did. We came up with an album that I certainly wouldn't have been able to do. And a lot of the changes that were made in my direction came from Casey, actually.
Yeah.
And Mike, too.
Because if you listen to the album, it doesn't sound like Dream Theater or maybe Spock Split. So some elements are shimmering through, but after I would say it's an individual style. It's rock music with some prog rock elements. It's not a typical prog rock production, which I expected. So how did it come?
Well, bit by bit. It was, a lot of, like Steve may have been playing a riff, and I may come up with, heard a melody, and then he'd say, well, try this note right there. And then I'd try that note, and then he could take a 3-chord progression and make it so much longer than just your typical pop motif would go, and that was one thing I noticed. So you might have a verse, that sounds like a pop verse, but if you listen to the chords, they're constantly kind of morphing and changing, and the keys are even changing too, you know. But that's stuff that would happen in the studio, you know.
I guess I've read it's recorded in just 9 days, just very fast recording.
That was from the time of everybody saying, all right, let's start, till the time we had the demos or the basic tracks all done. What we did do is everyone had the option to go and replace every single note of what they did if they wanted to. And some of that original I did keep, but a lot of it I overdubbed, and so did everybody. At the end of 9 days, it wasn't a finished album, but it sure sounded like the finished album. But it ended up being, you know, like almost all the lyrics changed, and almost all the guitar parts and keyboard and drums were redone. Exactly the same, but just with more careful attention to the sound, because we all played live at the same time during those 9 days.
Oh, yeah. Because this sounds very cohesive, very cohesive sound, song-orientated tracks. So was it hard to reduce soloing and to put yourself under one roof?
It was hard to satisfy everybody. I know that. Like, I would come up with something that, you know, I know would work, but for instance, like Casey would say, "Yeah, but," and at the end of it, we came up, you know, that was my first thing, was trying to figure out what was it that Casey wanted to hear that was different, and it was almost like a generation gap thing. I was doing stuff that was very. Well, I guess you could hear that the influences or the era that it came from more. And so when Casey was done with it, he was always, I couldn't put my finger on any one thing, but he always had a different take on it. So it ended up shaping the way the record went. But into, like I said, I couldn't have written, even though we were all writing all the time and all throwing stuff in, I couldn't have come up with probably anything the way it did if it hadn't been for the combination of people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's become its own thing, you know, which we were.
It wasn't planned. It was no direction.
It was not. We didn't have a plan coming in other than what Steve said. We're not going to bring anything finished or any, you know, fully functional idea, because we needed it to take its own shape.
Yeah. And it sounds very, very relaxed atmosphere, no bad feeling. So is it right? Does it represent the feeling in the band, the relaxed atmosphere?
Well, we turned off the recorder during the fist fights.
Yeah.
No. It was actually, we got a tremendous amount of work done with very little stress. We worked hard, and we knew we were tired at the end of each day, but it was not stressful because, well, it was in a sense that, here's an example. Neil got up to get a drink, and it said, well, I think the chorus should go like this, his original idea. By the time he got back, Casey and I had changed it. And of course made it better. But he came back and said, what happened to my chorus? I said, take a drink, lose a chorus.
That's good.
Yeah, that became our mantra. Yeah. Get a drink and lose a chorus.
But there's no family relationship between you and Neil? Because
No. Actually, people have been asking me for years, when you're going to play with your brother. I said, I played with my brother years ago. My brother is a drummer. And oh, you mean Neil Morse? No, he's not. We're not related. But it's amazing that
it's a funny thing.
Yeah, it is a funny thing that actually he and I agreed on almost anything that we wrote together. It was. I mean, he had a tendency to go this way, and I had a tendency to go that way. But within a few minutes, we pretty much came up with stuff, and a lot of the changes in directions happened from Mike and Casey, to me, from what I would normally do to what we ended up with. Like Mike was pushing for different rhythmic things than I would have maybe done, and Casey was always looking for a different hook that was, you know, not in my normal vocabulary.
Yeah, and you played 2 gigs in the United States, so how were the reactions on the material there? How were the 2 gigs?
People singing along. People it's very melodic album. It's the most melodic thing I've been a part of.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we've been getting some standing ovations, which is, pretty cool, and hearing people singing back. At one point in New York, I stopped singing so that we could hear everyone singing, and that feels so good to hear the power of people, with one voice.
The first gig we ever played in New York City ever, the band had never existed as a touring band, and then the whole crowd is singing along with Casey's lyrics. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, on that gig where there was no chairs, we had a standing ovation the whole show.
Yeah, that was amazing too. Yeah.
And how important was Peter Collins as a producer? He's a very experienced guy, worked with Rush, Queensryche, and many other groups. Did he bring you forward in your musical identity, or?
Personally, I really wanted him there from the very beginning of writing, because I felt like we need somebody to decide the arguments. Whereas I think it's great. I don't think so. That which do you go with, and to have Peter break the tie? I'm sorry. I think the second way was better. And the only time he was wrong was when he disagreed with me.
Yeah, it was really nice though to have that, because it kept us to be able to, at such a new relationship, be able to stay close and to dig in.
Good point.
And bond with each other, and Peter could be the bad guy.
This band will have a future album, or is it just planned for one album, and maybe there will be a follow-up to this first album one day, or is it still open?
I think we're going to do another one. We have a contractual offer to do another one already, so I think we're going to do that. I mean, we haven't actually had a band meeting about it.
Or a band email. We've actually, it's been a year since we've recorded this, so we've all been, but there's been hundreds of emails, back and forth from the period per day.
It was recorded 1 year ago, but it was released in March of this year. So what was the reason for this delay?
We don't know. Part of it is it's a European company that's releasing it, and we don't understand, or I personally don't understand what their challenges were. But I'm sure they had other things with release dates, and they want to space them out. Because the people who are in charge of promoting can spread out their time better.
And the last track on this album, it's a very long track, Infinite Fire. Sorry, I don't. It's 12 minutes, so it's out of the normal routine. So could you explain this outstanding song? Because I listened to it, I looked 12 minutes. I didn't get it 12 minutes because it was so easy to listen. So it was so easy to. It doesn't sound like such a long track, because it was my impression.
Well, I first heard that most of that song was something that came out of what Steve and Neil wrote together in their first writing sessions, and so I heard that, and then that was really the first Flying Colors tune,
Yeah, that we had written for lots of song ideas, and had them. A lot of stuff on tape, and he said, well, we need something, the big prog epic, and that was when we were going with the idea of, Carrie may or may not still be joining us, or somebody like him. We didn't know what the band was going to be exactly. We're writing, okay, let's try and do that. So we were trying to make a long journey out of it.
Yeah.
We had a different chorus though, and that was another case where. Another example of Casey coming in and saying, can we change that? And it of course came out better for the band, and by doing that, we had something that would work and was very solid, but it was more familiar to somebody from our generation. Maybe, I don't know how to not put that nicely. It sounded stylistic to prog stuff from the 70s and 80s.
And how hard is it to coordinate this band or maybe other bands with your main bands? Is it a hard task to schedule all?
Steve explains this really well.
It's okay. If you can imagine you have 5 people, take all their schedules and look at the open time. What are the chances that they're all going to overlap each other for long enough for a tour and 6 months in advance so that you can notify the promoters or the booking agent to get offers? Very slim chances. In fact, I had to push really hard with Purple and management to do this, and it actually wasn't easy. And in some cases, and sometimes it wasn't very, very relaxed feeling.
Because you were on tour with G3 with Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, and Deep Purple starts in fall of this year, so it's a hard life permanently on tour, but you still feel very satisfied and full of worth and energy. So what is the source for this source of energy?
Well, energy I've got. My problem has never been energy. My problem has just been time. And I'm gonna die with a million things left to do on my list. So it's a big spread. We have a good chemistry together. Everybody sitting in the same room when we were working on songs. Something, like I said, something magic came up. I think it's something special.
Yeah. And for you with Alpha Rev, it's not such a big problem to coordinate all this.
No, I'm not as big as the rest of those guys are, and I get to call the shots in my band.
He gets to make the decision.
I get to make the decisions. So when you have a band as big as Purple, where you got managers and people that are kind of cracking the whip, it can be really hard to find a window. But yeah, we found it.
And Steve, you have many bands and so on. And Deep Purple is your main band. You play in big arenas, big stadiums. Now with this band, you play in smaller venues. What do you like more?
Well, I like the catering. I like the catering, and the big place is the best. You can't compare the two. It's like saying there's certain women in your life that you loved. Which do you like more, your wife or your mother? They're different. They're different, and they supply different parts of your career. So I can't really comment much more than that. They're totally different. This is something that we had to do. Especially once we recorded it and everybody saw, wow, this is really something. People have got to hear this live, and that's the main thing. That's why we're here.
But you still see your family, and they still know you.
Scheduling wise, it's not working out too good for my family, but.
They still know him.
Yeah.
In fact, his wife was with us for during rehearsal on our American tour, and she's an amazing lady. She's able to kind of help us stay organized and everything. So it's good.
The question to your Deep Purple stance. Is it a hard thing to be compared with Ritchie Blackmore? Because some fans say, no, Ritchie Blackmore is the only Deep Purple guitarist. So how hard was it you to work as his successor?
I had replaced Kerry Livgren in Kansas, in some people's eyes, because Kerry wasn't, when they got back together with Steve Walsh. So I knew what I was getting in for. There's a pretty much a minority of fans that will just hate you because you're not the original guy, no matter what you do. So I expected that. So that was no big surprise. However, the fans that come to the shows and listen, they can see that we have a great time. I enjoy playing with them. They enjoy playing with me, and that's just the way it is. Ritchie isn't going to be playing with them. He quit. So they're going to have to hear somebody different anyway.
Oh yeah.
So it's hard when you meet or when you're dealing with somebody that's in your face saying, "You suck, Richie." It's hard. People are generally not ever that rude, but every once in a while you'll come across it, and especially on the internet. The internet is like obviously made by Satan because it brings out the worst in people, But like I said, the bottom line is we go to the shows and look at people's faces. People like the band live very much, and I enjoy playing with the band live very much.
And with your band, I must admit I've never heard them before, Alpha Rev. So are there any future plans?
We have a record coming out in January, so we're gonna, in the States. I'm gonna play a little solo show in London, and I would, try to get some action out here in Europe somewhere. So, who knows? Maybe come back with Alpha Rev sometime. But
I'm sure because you're much more well known now, maybe than before, I guess, with rock, and this will help you.
We got to do that Steve Morse band with Casey sitting in show in Las Vegas.
Yeah, we're gonna
every 3 months, so I can see myself.
we're gonna do a little Las Vegas circuit. That way I can gamble, he can hang out with his son, and
All right. Thank you very much for this nice interview.